Hey there guys, and welcome to another video. Today we've got something a little different for you. You get to see us from a perspective that you normally wouldn't see. I'm going to make us all small in the corner there, but you can actually see us riding our follow car. This was, we were filming a documentary, was actually following us on one of our favorite roads in Guangdong. It's called the G323. Do you remember that road?
I sure do. It's in northern Guangdong.
It's got some epic...
Which is southern China.
Yeah, I mean, it's an epic road, as you can tell, for motorcycles. It's really nice. Yes. But it's got some brilliant places where you can stop off and see some scenery. We actually took some footage.
Really beautiful.
So we thought this would be the perfect background for our topic today.
Yes. And that is, are you guys going to go back to China after the CCP collapses? Or... one of many variations of this question.
Yeah, are you guys back in China?
Are you
going to go back?
China? Have you been back? All this kind of stuff. We want to nip this in the bud and answer it properly. And maybe actually I'll answer a couple of your other questions as well.
Sure.
I remember you lift my spirit. With you high is all I'm feeling. Remember how we felt alive.
Well, I guess the first question to answer, are you guys back in China or did you get back to China, is no. Absolutely not. No. And there are quite a few reasons for this. And the number one reason is that if we did go back to China, we would not be let out.
No.
Again.
I have a theory that they actually would let us in.
Sure.
The actual standard, like when they hated journalists, for example, they just won't allow their visa. And then the journalists just can't get to China, right? Journalists, to a certain extent, have some sort of diplomatic immunity. We do not.
Yeah,
right?
We're not journalists.
They would probably we do journalistic work, right?
Yeah,
but they would probably allow our visa, let us in and be like, these idiots, and then just not let us leave and then deal with us however they wanted to. So you have to understand that in China, it's not like in America or a different country, right? Where you can speak out against the government like what we do or help Chinese dissidents like what we do. China hates us. Yeah. They don't want us. I guess they would like to have us back. They don't want us talking about what we talk about.
Don't want us filming anything or showing,
that's for sure.
Because that's what we've been doing.
Right.
We have shone a spotlight and drawn the curtain back, so to speak, to show people what it's really like to live in China, warts and all.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is China has a very polished image which it wants to present to the world. And it makes sure that all of its propaganda and every single person that's got anything to do with China, they always make sure that whatever they're putting out there is positive, about infrastructure, about, the government policies that are so successful, lifting people out of poverty. Look at this amazing solar farm we're putting out there. But they never talk about the real societal issues that affect everybody in China. Yep. So when we started to talk about these things, we didn't realize what a massive landmine we were standing on. And it really messed our lives up.
And honestly, it never used to be that bad.
Yeah.
We don't attribute this necessarily to the leadership. It's just the way that China's gone. Yeah. Under the current leadership, China, just to give you a cheat sheet here, a little rundown. Under Xi Jinping, any criticism at all, I'm not even talking about criticism, I'm talking about being in a place that they just don't want you to see, not some city center, like we're out just making friends with people in the countryside. That's a no-no. They cut us off, right?
Yeah. Let's get down to threat watching.
Well,
malwares.
Almost like tiny aliens living among us.
Look, right up there.
Hey, sweetie, meet mature singles in your area.
Here at ADV, we make sure that we use a VPN every single time we use the internet because we don't want threats from the outside coming in to our world. Just like I don't think you guys want that either. The newest thing from NordVPN, which is the VPN we use, is threat protection. Threat protection is a fantastic way that actually steps up your cybersecurity and makes sure that if there's any malicious sites or downloads or trackers or any intrusive ads, that it blocks it off right away. It's a fantastic new feature of our favorite VPN that keeps us safe every single day on the internet. If you go to nordvpn.com/ADVChina, not only are you gonna get a massive, huge discount off of a 2-year plan of the VPN, but you're also gonna get 1 free additional month, and it's completely risk-free. Try it out. If you don't like it, you get your money back. nordvpn.com/ADVChina.
So it got to a point where it got so uncomfortable that we had to leave, and absolutely, China's on the trajectory to be a full-on North Korea hermit state at this point.
Yeah.
Now, to actually answer the question, if the Chinese government collapsed or changed, there's regime change or something, would we go back? Absolutely, we'd go back, 100%. As long as the new government was friendly to people, that want to speak the truth. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, we'd love to go back. We fell in love with China. We lived there. We settled down there. And we left under duress. So, of course, we'd like to go back if the situation was fruitful for content creation and it was a happy, positive environment to be.
Yeah, the last straw, really, right before I left, was the two Canadian Michaels being just arbitrarily detained because of political reasons. And that was when, all bets were off. That's when you realized, we could be next under any circumstance that they decide that they don't like your country or they don't like you or whatever the case may be, a shift in politics somewhere. They can just pick you up and indefinitely detain you without even charging you, like they did with the two Michaels. It was like 6 months before they even mentioned anything about charges.
Yeah.
Some bogus stuff anyway that they came up with. But that's the thing. It's not a safe place to be. And there are plenty of examples of American citizens, for instance, Australian citizens that have gone to China, working in China, and suddenly they disappear. Nobody knows where they are. And then they might resurface months or years later saying, oh, they've been charged with something, or there's an exit ban put on them, and they only find out when they try to leave China that they can't, and there's nothing they can do about it. They can still live a normal life in China.
True.
Like those children of that dissident, or that guy who ran away.
Yeah.
They went to go visit the sick grandmother, because sick grandmothers is a tool for the CCP. They went to go visit the sick grandmother, and then they couldn't leave. Because they were trying to get the father to come back to China, and they were trying to use them as basically ransom to get him to come back, blackmail him back into China so they could arrest him on his corruption charges.
That's how the Chinese government operates. It's like a mafia.
So that's why we don't want to go back.
No. That actually leads into another question. By the way, these questions came from our patron.
Yeah.
So the people that support us out there. I ask people for questions. They give us some really brilliant ones. And this
Appreciate
one's
it.
directly related to what you just said.
Okay.
Anything police related, I love to hear about how they track foreigners. And I can give you a really easy rundown. Because I had family members in the Chinese government, they told me how the whole system worked, about how foreigners are watched. And they've been doing this forever. It's called the PSB, the Public Security Bureau. This kind of apparatus of the government, they are tasked with making sure that foreigners, they know where foreigners are, where they shop, what they do, basically track them, follow them around. And this got much more relaxed over time, although this security apparatus always existed. As China opened up, they kind of just relaxed the controls. You still had cops that were still assigned to every foreigner, absolutely. But they kind of were like, oh, okay, maybe this cop is being assigned 10 foreigners now, right? And I don't really care what they do as long as they're not getting into trouble, right?
Yeah.
But then it started to ramp up again. They started using the PSB to track foreigners that they found to be high risk. And high risk almost always has nothing to do with like necessarily drugs or high risk to break their contract or something like this at their job. High risk means, are these people, do they have a big audience? Do they have a big following? Do they have an online fan base?
Or are they African?
Right? So depending on your nationality. So they declare what's high risk. And this is what my family members told me, is they said, you and Winston absolutely have a PSB member watching you at all times. They know everything about you. And we confirmed this later when we were being interrogated. They knew everything about us.
Yeah, where we shopped, our wives, everything. Yeah.
Yes. So they still have this system. And in fact, it's been reignited in a way. And there are less foreigners now. A lot of foreigners have left China. So there's a lot more scrutiny they can put on the foreigners that are there.
Yeah, because they've got more manpower.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it used to work was, I'll give you an example in my area where I used to live in Shenzhen. There would be, in the local Shaochu, which means in your neighborhood, there would be a police officer assigned to the foreigners living in that building complex in that little area. And you would have to register with the local police station. And in fact, in my case, they actually would come to my door to check up on my papers. And in the beginning, when I first got there in 2006 or 2007 was the first time I'd moved into a proper apartment. That's when I got my first visit. Pretty polite.
Yeah.
Plainclothes guy came. It's like, hey, I'm police.
Yep.
And, you wanted to see my passport and everything. And they just registered me downstairs. That's totally okay.
100%.
It started to get more and more malicious. For instance, just before the Beijing Olympics, I got a knock on my door at sort of 11:30, 12 at night, and there were 8 policemen all standing there in their uniforms. They got the tallest, meanest looking guys they could, all in those, very spruced up uniforms. It's like a special occasion stuff. And they came into my apartment and rifled through my drawers and stuff and demanded to see my papers. And it just got worse and worse. It would happen arbitrarily late at night, and especially when they were doing crackdowns on Africans, because I'm South African. So they see my nationality as a South African, and they're like, okay. And they
guy's high
usually,
risk.
and they were very confused, in that open the door and I'm a white guy. They couldn't understand it because to them, Africans are all black.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
usually
this
the
is
way
a
it
lot of this is racially motivated.
Yeah.
There's a huge distrust in the Chinese government for African people,
Especially in Guangdong
especially in
because of
Guangdong,
Guangzhou.
because there's lots of African people in Guangzhou. It's a huge race. There's been a lot of scandals involved
Sure.
with that, so I can see how that.
But yeah, that's how they would keep track of you. And it just kind of got worse and worse.
for
Really.
sure. Actually, this is also related. I'm going to have related questions, right? It says, now that China has no qualms cutting up people's passports and even foreign green cards of Chinese citizens leaving, which, by the way, they're doing.
Yeah, they have done. It's been documented.
It makes me concerned about ever visiting China again, even though now I'm an American citizen. So this is a Chinese American. What's the likelihood that China will start to do the same to Chinese people who have obtained citizenship in other countries? Is there a possibility that they'll cut up my U.S. passport when I try to leave because I was born there originally? I mean, if you had asked me this 3 years ago, I'd say absolutely not. They wouldn't want to risk the bad press.
Maybe
the bad
maybe you can tell
relationships.
people what China thinks of dual nationalities.
China doesn't allow dual
And
nationality.
they don't recognize
They don't
it.
recognize it, right? So if you renounce your citizenship and you become American, right? China will say, okay, fine. That's finally an American person or whatever. You have to get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll always consider you a Chinese national, right? And honestly, there have been situations where they don't even treat those people that have changed their nationality as foreign nationals. They treat them like they were Chinese because they were originally born and bred in China.
Or look at Eileen Gu, for instance. Like even people that were not born in China,
No.
never held a Chinese passport
point.
in their life. If you get like a scientist that has an achievement or something like that, happens to be ethnically Chinese, they'll claim him as being Chinese.
True.
They'll say like, look, our Chinese people are so incredible or something. And, they will treat them as Chinese people.
That's right.
So it's a sticky one. If I were you, I'd just avoid it.
I would avoid it, especially for the time being. I mean, we'll see how things play out, but it's gotten way worse than we foresaw.
Sure.
But to be honest, we were much more even though China was like in really rough position for foreigners like us when we left. We didn't see it getting better, but we didn't see it getting this bad. But it's gotten really bad.
Yeah. I'd just be careful because they might just be on some kind of weird political whim.
Yes.
And they might be like, well, we don't recognize your second nationality and we don't consider you to be American and we're not going to honor your American passport. They might take it away. You never know.
That's actually how I'd like to. I want to round this up by saying I'd like to be careful because I want to be responsible with our advice. It's not like the vast majority of people that are going to go visit China or do whatever are probably not going to run into too many issues.
Sure.
But it doesn't matter because it's gotten so arbitrary that we can't really look at anecdotal evidence anymore. We can only look at situations where, holy crap, get these horrible emails from people that are saying like, oh, I was detained and stuck in China. They took my passport. I was separated from my family. All these things kind of pile up and you're like, wait a minute, this could happen to anyone.
Why take the risk?
Why take the risk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us on this little motorcycle ride through the G323, one of our favorite roads in Guangdong, in fact, in the whole of China, to be honest. And hopefully you learned a little something about this. No, we're not in China. No, we don't plan to go back anytime soon. But if the opportunity arises in the future, we'd love to. We'd absolutely miss China. And there are lots of things about China that we'd like to go back and do and see and so on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Until the next episode, guys, you know the drill. As always, stay awesome.